We're live. What's up? It
Jake,
is.
you're back home.
I am back home, back in the home office, repping the safe,
Hey.
Gnosis Safe. Used to be called Gnosis Safe. Now I think it's just Safe, and their product is called Defender. The reason I'm pointing to my back is because there's
Oh.
a really cool graphic on the back. But anyways,
I thought maybe you meant they got your back. You know?
They do have your back for sure. Big fans of the Gnosis product line, of course. No idea what they're doing with the Gnosis chain and all that stuff, but from a multi-sig perspective and from managing governance and all of these other things, amazing. We use them all the time. Love it. Anyways, so you're gonna see consistent theme here for the next little bit, since it was like trick-or-treating kind of at the conference. I walked around with a bag and just picked up merch from all the booths that had cool merch. So that's going to be the theme for this week. And next week,
Corporate
maybe the week after.
trick-or-treating.
Maybe forever. Because what's going to happen is people are going to see me repping their merch on here. I'm going to get free merch. That's what's going to happen. We're going to get tons of merch. Customized merch.
You only like the plain merch. You only like merch that's like black t-shirt, logo. You don't like anything busy.
Not super busy, but
I do have busy stuff. I love wild things.
Just wait. I got a button-up shirt from 1 Inch that is really gonna blow some minds. It's also probably too small, so it'll be really funny putting it on. We got some like really nice hoodies and some like really cool colored hoodies and t-shirts and hats. Christine got a scarf. We got a beanie, toque. We got tons of shit. It was awesome. Anyways,
But
shout out to Safe. Welcome back. Thank you. Kiara, how was your week? Busy?
It was great. I feel I should point out that since it's a Monday episode of Go FUD Yourself, we have a news ticker on the bottom. So this is all the hot news that you probably missed while you were coming home from East Denver. So if you were in transit or suffering.
Neither. Well, I was in transit. I mean, I did have to transit from there to here. Time travel, not quite ready yet. Being smashed into a million pieces and then reassembled on the other side. I don't want to be the guinea pig for that. So
I feel like that wouldn't be time travel in this instance, but.
Well, teleportation, I suppose. But that'd be cool, though. Like someday it'll happen, I'm sure. Probably when we're only consciousness embedded in robots. That'll be when that'll happen. Anyways, definitely paid attention to a lot of the news over the weekend, mainly because I have nothing better to do, but also because it's pretty critical since we live in this space. And so we saw some interesting stuff happen at the end of last week. We saw the Mt. Gox thing and then the market dump entirely, probably a mixture of FUD and reality, of course, which is why we're here. This is why we're talking about it. The Mt. Gox thing, I mean, we've known about this for a long time, that most of these people are going to get their assets back at some point. And the timeline around now has been public knowledge for a long time. I also think that anybody that is getting their Bitcoin back right now, there's going to be a certain amount of people that are going to dump it, because when Mt. Gox happened, Bitcoin was at like in the hundreds of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
So they're at like stupid multiples even now. But if you were smart, not financial advice at all, but I mean, there's a pretty good chance that in the next few years, the price is going to be significantly up. And so there's probably a lot of people that have been sitting on Bitcoin this long that are probably comfortable sitting on it for a bit longer until they can maximize their output. So we probably won't see.
So they might have exited crypto totally, right? If they became very disenfranchised. So then.
Yeah, I mean, the counter thesis to that is that if they were in Mt. Gox,
true,
you were pretty early. Like I remember when Mt. Gox happened, like we were early, like real early. Like people were still meaningfully uncertain if crypto was even going to survive. And so, yeah, you're probably right. There's probably a few people that were just like, screw this, I'm out. But if you had enough assets in Mt. Gox, enough dollar value, chances are you drank the Kool-Aid.
Do you think we're going to see more people like digging through, local garbage disposals, trying to find their seeds?
There's a guy in the UK that I can't remember the exact amount of bitcoins, but it's 200 million and change. And he's been looking through the landfill in London for like the last year and a half. And now he's talking about raising money to pay people to help him go through the landfill to find his hard drive.
There's a few stories like that. A couple of them found them, supposedly. I don't know.
Some crazy shit.
Now.
That's some crazy shit. Like, could you imagine? Like, that would suck because the chances of finding it are like near zero. But having 200 million for sure sitting there if you do find it is like most people would spend the rest of their life dumpster diving in that. Well, it's not called dumpster diving at that point. Dump diving at the dump. The landfill. It's crazy.
I threw out a gift card that was $25 for groceries, and like I was devastated. I can't imagine millions of dollars on a ledger.
Yeah, it would be crazy. But anyways, all right. So last week, kind of crazy stuff going on. Everybody was in Denver. It was cool though. Kind of my overall sentiment from ETH Denver was there was a lot of meaningful excitement there. There's a lot of incredible technology being developed. Really taking the space another couple of steps forward, I think. Mm-hmm. And what I noticed more now than ever before, and this has been a trend, so this isn't like everything sucked until ETH Denver, not at all. But what I've noticed now more than ever is that the teams that you meet, some of them have been around for a minute now, some new teams have established, but most of them are much more sophisticated and experienced than I've ever seen before. We kind of had this challenge over the last couple of cycles where most teams were comprised of either business-minded people or development-minded people, but never a proper, well-rounded combination of both. And we're seeing a lot of that combination now starting to evolve, which is exciting. I mean, again, no idea which direction things are necessarily going to go, whether it's like L2s or there's going to be more L1s popping up or kind of what is going to happen. But I think no matter which direction we go, there's a lot of really exciting expertise that's working on some of these challenges. So I think it's exciting. I'm excited.
It was kind of an interesting news week too, just if I may, because North America was at ETH Denver. So most of the news that we saw was either Silvergate or international news. And it was kind of neat to have that open up a little bit. And it's continuing through now because since we gave it attention, it's all on our algorithms. So I have all kinds of UAE things and Australia things coming up, which I'm not sure I would have seen if the timing had been a bit different.
Yeah, I agree. I think, whenever we have a major conference in any part of the world, everybody's there and no one else is, they're not writing and reporting on stuff. It is a pretty valid point. We don't think a whole heck of a lot often about what's happening in the rest of the world. You and I have, so far have talked quite a bit about some of that stuff.
Yes, but some of it's algorithmic, right? I live here.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's a function of reach and whatever time, right? We're awake during North American news hours, so it's way more likely that we see North American news more than international news. But anyways, we're on the 12th episode. So 14th. 14th? What?
Yeah, I counted today.
Holy shit.
It's even in the episode title, JD.
That's it. That's the whole title, episode 14. So that I didn't screw it up, and I did anyways. But anyways, I think over the course of the last 14 episodes, we've talked at least 50% or more about international news, which is exciting. But maybe we could talk a little bit more about Silvergate, just because we've talked about it a few times. I don't want to spend a ton of time on it, but
let's do a Silvergate wrap up. So JD, what do we already know about Silvergate?
Well, I don't know if we actually for sure know anything other than Silvergate kind of unexpectedly ran into some issues. We say unexpectedly. I don't think it was that unexpected because in less than 24 hours, Coinbase had already said, we're out. We've got a new vendor for those services. Chances are they didn't do that inside of 24 hours. So it was probably something that was not a complete surprise to the institutional clients of Silvergate. I don't know. anyways, to make a long story short, they've effectively shuttered their crypto business lines, which validates effectively the concern that people had last week that, is it just they're busy doing other shit, or are they in fact in trouble? And it turns out they're in fact in trouble. And so that's it. There's not going to be a whole heck of a lot more. I think the good thing about this, hopefully, is it's, as far as I have read so far, understand, I don't think any users lost any money or ran into issues. I just think the company itself, given regulatory uncertainty and given some inefficiencies, just can't make money doing this anymore. And so that's kind of where that's at.
That opens up a whole world for
it does
crypto banking.
For Kraken. So I think we can actually talk about that now. So Kraken, who there was a couple of reports, and we actually mentioned this last week, that Kraken was moving to Silvergate, which was like super confusing because Coinbase was leaving and Kraken was going too. But now it turns out, I think obviously maybe Kraken wasn't aware because they weren't a client, that Silvergate was, no longer going to be operating. And so now they're talking about launching their own bank, even given the challenging regulatory environment. And I think banking is something that is like pretty clear from a regulatory perspective. Like if you're a bank, it's pretty clear what the path is to being compliant. It's quite complicated, but it's clear.
Well, it's been done before, right? And Kraken's in this interesting position where they're navigating something new, but if they can at the same time, it's kind of like something, what's the wedding phrase? Something blue, something borrowed, something old, something new?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're doing something totally new, right? They can borrow lessons from traditional finance, and then they can also use the something old in what is already institutions. I don't know what's blue though. You'll have to cover that one.
Something blue. I mean, Coinbase is blue. But anyways, I mean, woo, puppies. But if you're excited about banking, oh my God, that's so loud. You're gonna have to mute him because he's driving me crazy. I mean, the thing about banking is there's a lot of overhead, there's a lot of compliance, but it's a pivotal piece to the centralized exchange business model. Like hugely important. There's nothing they can do without fiat gateways. That's part of their value proposition, is we connect the world of fiat banking to the world of crypto in a centralized and a little less than transparent way. But I mean, Kraken, Coinbase, there's a lot of guys at groups that have been around for a minute. And what we've seen is the banking support. There was Zedra back in the day, Signature Bank. There's Anchorage. Like there's quite a few of these kind of neo banks that have established, and a lot of them have had their fair share of challenges trying to navigate the crypto space. And I think one of the challenges is that they don't have meaningful and scaled business lines to offset some of the initial costs and compliance overhead and all of these things. And so the more that we look into compliance and regulatory obligations, the more clear it becomes that you need to have a very robust business model to remain successful. And so Kraken, of all groups, I think has the firepower, the wherewithal, the experience, and the market capture to be able to do something like that. And so I think it's going to be great. If it is successful, hopefully they open it up to other centralized exchanges, because I suspect it'll be a little bit more predictably secure and consistent. So we'll see. But exciting.
I want to bring up that because they are taking lessons from institutional banks, from traditional finance banks, they're going all in. The chief legal officer is trying to make the point that they are ready, and they're doing it, and they are learning those lessons. They're going to have the little ballpoint pens and the little chains. There's going to be thousands of them. They're going to be on Wall Street. I think this is comedic, and it's supposed to get attention. It's almost the opposite of FUD. But what I like to note about it is they're saying we're doing it right. We're taking the lessons that have already been done, and we're actually going to be here.
This is actually hilarious. I don't know where that headline came from, but that's really funny.
It is in every article. That is Marco Santori's direct quote. Their chief legal officer.
I like that. I mean, I think, obviously there's a playbook to follow, both from a scaling perspective and regulatory. But I think what's critical here is that you see a company with the reputation of Kraken. They've been around since the early days of crypto. I just think it makes sense. It's an obvious play, I think, for a large participant. They're pretty big globally, obviously, especially in Latin America, and they're big. They're pretty big in the U.S. too, but they're very big globally in Europe and Eastern Europe and Latin America, Africa. And so they've got a really big client base. They've got definitely the experience and the staying power to do something meaningful here. So Coinbase would be the other obvious participant for something like this. I know Coinbase, as far as I can remember, unless they've sold them since then, has acquired banking licenses. I think they have many of the licenses just parked. And so if Coinbase wanted to, they could probably, in fairly quick order, spin up their own version of a crypto bank. But I think Coinbase is just under the microscope unfairly, I think, in a lot of ways. And they're probably just saying, hey, let's not take on any more regulatory overhead than we've already got. But I don't know. I'm obviously not privy to those conversations, so I have no idea.
But those could be two very different tactics. One is like, okay, let's simplify, let's focus on crypto, let's make sure that we're doing everything right in this vein. And meanwhile, Kraken could be saying, again, we're not lawyers and we're not financial advice and we're not on any of their roundtables. But Kraken could be saying, okay, well, let's borrow from traditional finance and make sure that we're being regulatory and following and showing that we have our due diligence and that our intention is very clean and pure so that we can break into that American market safely.
Yeah, I mean, we have to wait and see. I think, like I said, I think it's promising because all we would see otherwise is, upstart banks that kind of these neo banks that don't have a track record of any regulatory compliance, likely, who knows? And it's just it's a lot bigger process to get them up to speed and to be able to offer consistent service. So I think hopefully this is the step in the right direction. I seem to think.
I also really like that Kraken is moving fast with this. Like they probably are already getting those little pens on chains printed. Meanwhile, Australia is moving slow as molasses. I guess molasses is maybe fast in Australia because it's so hot. I don't know anything about Australia.
It is hot. They're moving as fast as Vegemite.
There you go. Sure. Is it Vegemite in Australia or Marmite? I never know which one is.
Vegemite, I think, but it's disgusting. Sorry to any of our Australian friends and viewers, but it's disgusting. You
don't like salted yeast spread? Weird.
It does not taste good, but it's a delicacy down there. I think this is kind of indicative of I think global regulators in general, and there's a lot of nuance, in fact, to how they're going to.
Can I just give a slight summary about this?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, because people might not know already. I read about 4 different articles on it. On February 2nd, the Australian Treasury released the token mapping consultation paper. They put it on Twitter. They put it on their website. They put it places you could find it. So people can actually go, small businesses, people who are involved in crypto, other regulators, government officials, so on and so forth. Everyone is encouraged to come and consult on this paper. And this is the kickoff to their multi-step agenda. I could not find other agenda items, but the idea is that we have a couple of months to go and comment on what Australia should do. And then that will be their first step in developing appropriate consultative regulation. However, it already, you can tell from the other things that they've released and from the general timeline of this first step, that it will probably be late 2024 before any decisions are made.
Yeah, and I think although we all want, regulation to come sooner rather than later, I think if there's going to be something, let's just get it out of the way, figure out how to respond to it so that we can move forward. I think the implications of crypto regulation are a lot more nuanced than people think. And there's a lot of very different opinions on how this should how this should play out. And no matter what, you're kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't, really, as a regulator. Because if you say everything's a security, let's just say, you say all these things are securities in this jurisdiction, essentially what Canada has done. And then you have to expect then everybody in that area, anybody participating in that area, to come into compliance as quick as possible. You have to consider like how many of these business models are now problematic. How many of these business models just don't work? And if it is a security, then it's not the other things. And if it's not the other things, that implies certain stuff. If it is, for example, a derivative, or if we determine that it should be regulated by an SRO, like a self-regulatory organization, which is the same as FINRA, which oversees a lot of banking and broker-dealer and securities exchange stuff in the US. It feels like they're a government organization, but they're in fact not. And they're an industry organization that is effectively taxed with policing themselves. And there's a lot of speculation that that's something that could be established in some of these Western jurisdictions also. We'll have to wait and see what happens. But each one of them comes with some significant upside and some significant downside. And how do you can't grandfather things perpetually, but you have to give people time to come into compliance. You can't say that everything under our current understanding that you were doing was illegal, because it wasn't at the time. So there's just a lot of nuance here. But I think Australia has been fairly vocal in their support for crypto. I think they have passed some legislation from a crypto perspective that does in fact make it a little more clear on what the rules of operations are there. But I think there's two pieces to crypto regulation in Australia that are important here. I think this paper in particular is about their CBDC and their central bank digital currency. So effectively the Australian dollar, or however they want to call it. That is not a small piece either. I think we talked about this, I think a couple of weeks ago, about Australia doing this CBDC. I mean, it's interesting because that's not a small challenge either. And there's no playbook to follow. Like no meaningful Western power has done anything like this. So it'll be interesting to see what that, how that plays out, and if and how monetary policy switches to some of these digital assets, which most people that I know think it would be a horrible outcome if we have CBDCs that also control monetary policy, because it's going to be the same problem we have now, but just on steroids, with printing money and all of these things and creating insurmountable debt. Anyways, the other thing that Australia has been a fairly big proponent of is just general crypto regulations, right? And I'm unclear if that's been pushed out, because they've been fairly aggressive on trying to figure that out and rolling out, bills pretty quickly. We'll have to see.
Australia.
Sounds exciting, doesn't it?
It's pretty, it's not definitive yet, right? This is kind of just reporting, but something that we need to monitor. It's interesting because I put up two different articles here, and one is really FUDdy and one is not. So one talks about how everybody's upset and it's a huge delay, and why is it this huge delay? Or what are we going to do about it? And the other article talks about what a boon it is and how wonderful it is that Australia is having a consultative approach and so on and so forth. So we're kind of in the middle. It's just neutral. Something is happening. It's good to take note that that's happening, but there's no definitive information, right?
Yeah, I mean, if I was them, I would probably wait for the US to do something, which is, I think, what's got us here, waiting for the US to do something. And the US is even less motivated. I think they're highly motivated, but they're less likely to get anything done in an expeditious fashion. That's just not how the US government works, especially when it requires actual legislation, because that's really the only way to fix this. Like right now, the SEC is saying, here's the current legislation that doesn't really directly apply, but like, is anything close enough that we can apply these existing regulations or existing legislation to what has to happen to create a clear delineation of compliance for crypto is they have to establish new laws, not just a mandate from the SEC or an opinion from the SEC. Congress is really the only place that has the power to do that, and they're the ones that give the SEC their mandate. So, and the reason that that's important is if Australia goes one direction and the US goes the complete opposite direction, Australia either has to be non-competitive or change their rules. And if you know anything about politics, they don't want to ever admit that they made a mistake or jumped the gun or did so. We're in this interesting stalemate, and so we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see how it all plays out.
I do like this semi-quote from the Treasury, which is that they think the demand for crypto has decreased significantly. And it's kind of an interesting quote because it's a little bit short-sighted, maybe. But they're saying, oh, we've noticed that people are trading less because a whole entire section has shut down and this bank has shut down and these dApps have shut down and there's just less money moving. But they haven't necessarily taken into account some of the other things we've spoken about, such as market dumps like Cox people getting things back or Kraken opening a bank. And that's just today, let alone ongoing news articles. So I wonder how agile they'll be in this consultative process.
Yeah, this is, well, who knows? I mean, we're hoping, obviously, for meaningful deliberation amongst industry stakeholders. And we're definitely putting our money where our mouth is and developing in the direction of regulation, but also, we're members of many lobby associations and blockchain associations to be able to hopefully have a seat at the table and discuss some of the concerns that we have. Actually, Rome Blockchain Labs, we submitted a paper to the US Treasury when they were looking for some insight. You can actually search it at the US Treasury website. If you Google Rome Blockchain Labs US Treasury, I think you can find the paper. But that was pretty high level. It was intended just to, give a somewhat unbiased opinion on how we think the risks in crypto exist. Obviously, it wasn't completely comprehensive. But trying at a high level to be a part of the conversation. And so, anyways, this is always the case with FUD, right? Like, often you get this like kind of confirmation bias. Something bad happens, everything shitty that happened after that must be related to that bad thing. And when something bad happens and you relate it to that bad thing, oh yeah, that's another one of those things that's related to that bad thing. So it keeps like reinforcing your incorrect assumptions. I think that FTX was obviously a meaningful piece of concern for people in the space and for institutions and for, participants. But there's a million other factors that are also leading to this. There was significant market decline, massive market decline on NFTs and a lot of these culture and art-based projects, which is where a lot of the new entrants into the space came. So either a couple of things could have happened. People could have sold at the bottom, which happened, unfortunately, to a lot of people. If you sell at the bottom, you lost money for sure. Most of the people that came in during the last bull market are down significantly because they didn't come in at the beginning of the bull. They came in when everybody else was starting to exit, and they were doubling down, buying the dips and doing all this stuff all the way down, catching the falling knives. And that sucks. So that really does impact sentiment. Of course, some of that was due to FTX, but a lot of it was prior to FTX. I mean, FTX had a big impact on the market, but Terra Luna and the fallout from Terra Luna, Three Arrows, UST, all of that stuff really reverberated through the space and caused a lot of sell-off and stuff. And the market was already cooling down. And if you take a look at macro conditions right now, like the macro conditions are not good. Like interest rates are incredibly high. The risk-free rate being near 5% is insane. Treasury bills, short-term T-bills at 5% is insane. Because you have to earn, there's a risk premium you have to earn for crypto. And when the risk-free rate is already at 5 points, that's a big hill to climb. So anyways, there's a lot of things. Point is here, take this with a grain of salt. I'm glad we started with that, or we ended with that, pardon me, because we can dispel some FUD.
Yeah, this wasn't a very FUDdy Monday, actually. It was mostly a good news Monday.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, depends how you look at it. I think most of the stuff that feels like FUD has some truth to it. And when you cut through the shit, then you just feel like, okay, I have a better understanding of what's going on. Instead of trying to sell me on why it's going to end my life, just tell me what it is, and then I'll make an assessment. And so
Did you just FUD my optimism?
No, I'm just saying that, like, generally speaking, we can be optimistic when we get through the FUD. Anyways.
Okay, well, happy Monday.
Go FUD yourself, Kiara.
Yeah, go FUD yourself, JD. Have a good week. I'll see you tomorrow at exactly the same time.
Same bat place, same bad time, 12:30 Eastern. All the channels. Subscribe, hit the bell, all that other shit to make sure that you hear us, because the algorithms probably don't like us because we're talking about crypto.
All right, go FUD yourself, JD.
Go FUD yourself. Talk to you later. Bye.